Today's Friday, the 5th of June. I'm supposed to be recording a section for episode 3 of the podcast, the USA edition, which is going to be about tourism marketing, about the United States, about what it can do to come back post-COVID. But I can't do it. I can't do it because of what's going on in America at the moment. I interviewed Rand, it's probably close to 2 weeks ago now. Greg sent his piece through, again, similar sort of timescale, maybe longer. This was supposed to be a positive, upbeat edition about marketing and about tapping into expertise from some of the brightest people in America. But I thought long and hard and thought, do I just shelve the whole episode? Do we keep the episode? What do we do? And this felt like the best way. To just say how it's made me feel with what's happened in America and what's happened to George Floyd and subsequently with the demonstrations and the protests afterwards. Initially, I was numb. I saw the photograph on social media and I didn't want to see any more. I have no desire to see people murdered, whether it's by police or by anybody else. I have no desire to see that. And it made the evening news. And the video was shown there with the man, George Floyd, I'll say his name, laid on the floor with a police officer with a knee on his neck. And it made me numb. I was angry a bit, but mainly just numb. Like, a cop had killed another guy, but I was numb. Another black man was dead, but I was numb. And it's taken me the best part of a week to work out why. And it was the slow, calculated nature of it that did that. Weirdly, and I don't mean this to sound like it's disrespecting other people who've been killed by the police, but I think I'm desensitized a little bit to black people being shot by American police. There's kind of an instant thing. There's an instant decision to pull your gun out and shoot, and it happens, and you see it on the news, and you just think, you know, you've got this ridiculous gun culture in the US, and if you're going to have a ridiculous gun culture, you're going to have people killed. And you become a little bit desensitized to it, which is an awful thing to say, but it gets normalized. But this was different. This was a man pleading for his life on the floor with a cop with his knee on his neck. And then the numbness went. And I got angry. And I'm still angry now. And I couldn't just record a happy piece about marketing and tourism and go and visit the US and here's what I would do post-COVID, because I'm angry. I'm angry that another man died, another black man died, because the US police see a suspect, see a criminal first and a person second, maybe not even second, maybe third. It was a slow, deliberate killing. And I think that's what's fired up the protests. That's what's made people come out on the streets. This isn't another shooting. And there's lots of them. There's lots of other ones. I can't remember the names. There's been so many of them. But George Floyd was different. This was slow. This was deliberate. And people are out on the streets. And then I log onto social media and I see people saying, well, you know, I understand the demonstrations, but the rioters have to stop. And there's part of that I understand, and you kind of internalize it and you play and you go, hey, okay, you know, rioting's violence, it's not helping anybody. And I, hand on heart, I don't think I'd be rioting. If I was in America, I'd be out on the streets demonstrating. Would I be rioting? No, I don't think so. But am I going to tell those people that they're doing the wrong thing by rioting? No, I'm not. They're protesting against the system, and you can't protest against the system only in the way the system says you can do it. No, don't be daft. This isn't a broken system, by the way, in America. This is the system working exactly as it's supposed to do. It's supposed to work like this. I was talking to an American academic 2 days ago who explained to me about how the funding of the school system works. It's funded by property taxes in the local area. You live in a poor area, you have poor taxes, you have poor schools. Poverty is copper fastened in the US because of the funding model. The best way to increase social mobility is through education, but the education's funded by local property taxes, so the system just perpetuates. This is the system working exactly as it is supposed to do in America. And then you wonder why black people are out on the streets. You wonder why people are rioting. Okay. I hear people say, look, the strategy sessions, it's a marketing podcast. I'll give you some marketing then. Don't start spouting off about rioting and tell me, oh, it's the rioters out on the streets. If you want to bring some marketing logic to it, segment your audience. How many people were out on the streets? How many people were rioting? And you're backing away with your support of the protests because a handful of minority were rioting. Okay, I see you. And let's be honest, riots do not happen out of thin air. Certain conditions continue to exist in society which must be condemned as vigorously as we condemn riots. Because in the final analysis, a riot is the language of the unheard. And what has America failed to hear? It's failed to hear the plight of the black poor has worsened over the last few years. It's failed to hear the promise of freedom and justice has not been met. And it's failed to hear that large segments of white society are more concerned about tranquility and the status quo than about justice, equality, and humanity. That's not me. As Martin Luther King in 1968, the only word I changed was the word black, because he said Negro. And I didn't change it for sensibility reasons. I just changed it for effect, so that it would sound more like something I would say. 1968, that could have been read out yesterday, and it would have still sounded perfect. There's a situation in America that has been able to flourish because of incumbent in the White House. President Trump, Donald Trump, I'm not even going to give him the title president. Donald Trump is in the White House. And he's made it okay for white nationalists. He's let's be honest, let's call it what it is. The man is a white nationalist in the White House, and it makes me angry. He stands there in his ill-fitting suits with his ridiculous hair and fastens his tie like an 8-year-old would. But the comedy, but us laughing at him, puts a soft veneer on the fact that the man is a white nationalist in the White House. And he's there. And we laugh. And you think, are we actually just helping to perpetuate this? Because we laugh at him because he's so cringeworthy. You can ridicule him all the time. But actually, what are we doing? We're softening the image of a white nationalist. And I'm angry about it. I go on Facebook, I go on Twitter. The first rule of the internet is never read the comments, right? And I've broken my own first rule. And you go into the comments and you see people arguing. You see, why are we demonstrating in Britain? What's this got to do with Britain? You go, what's this got to do with Britain? And you go, well, okay, maybe they're the land of the free, right? Don't make me laugh, land of the free. And yeah, you have black people having to teach the kids to put their hands up when the police come, to put their hands up and tell them they're not a threat to them. And I don't have to do that here. I don't have to tell that to my daughter. I don't walk around. I'm in Northern Ireland, the PSNI. I don't walk past the police on the streets here and think, are they going to take a gun out and shoot me? Are they going to treat me as a criminal first? I don't think that. I don't feel that here. But that doesn't mean that there aren't people in the UK who don't think that. You talk to people in London who are ethnic minorities who are black, and they worry about the police in those ways. They worry about being arrested. They worry about stop and search being disproportionately used against them because they are assumed to be guilty. Right? And I don't have that fear where I am. I don't. But I have. I sat on the tube in London just after the 7/11 attacks. Not just after, a couple of months after. I was on the tube going south towards Stockwell, where the Met shot Jean-Charles de Menez. And apologies about the pronunciation of his name, I've probably got it wrong. And unless you've sat on a tube with a rucksack on your back and looked at armed police getting on that tube and thought, shit, there's a chance I might not get off this tube today. Don't tell me racism doesn't exist in this country. Don't tell me we shouldn't be going out marching in solidarity, in support of what's going on in America. Right? Because racism happens in this country. If you want to know what it's like, if you've got a black friend, because every racist seems to have a black friend, go and ask him what it's like, or go and ask her what it's like to try and get through an airport. Right? It's a running joke with me and my friends, with people I travel with. That random test. Oh, Mr. Jarvis, there's a random test. Come on. Yeah. And I'm angry about it. It's not funny anymore. I'm fed up of losing my shit with people at airports because I'm randomly selected again. When you fly 3 and 4 times a week, it gets tiring. So don't tell me racism doesn't exist in this country. Right? We just do racism differently to the Americans. They stand in the front of you and scream it in your face. In Britain, we wear nicer suits and better ties and whisper about it behind you. That's how racism looks here. Study after study after study shows that if you have a name that makes you sound like an ethnic minority on your CV, resume if you listen in America, shows that you have less chance of being shortlisted for that job because your name sounds different. They don't even know what you look like at that stage, but your name sounds different. There were studies in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s, in the noughties, a study recently, and they all show the same thing. You make people sound whiter on their CV, they get more of a chance of an interview. A friend of mine, Luke Carthy, made a post recently where he said he sat in the reception of a business and people walked in and went, oh, is Luke Carthy here? He's the only guy sat in reception, but because he's black, people didn't think it should be him who should be there for that. I'd forgotten so many experiences like that. When people look at you and go, oh, you're Andy. You don't sound like you should be. What? What should I sound like? Should I come bouncing in and go, we're Andy white women? And I'm angry about it. You got twice as likely if you're black in London to be given a fine for breaching COVID guidelines than if you're white. You got Noel Clarke, an actor who's in Fisherman's Friend. His name's across the top as a star of the show, but they've chopped him out of the picture for the front of the DVD. That's happened to me, and people go, oh, it's a composition issue, Andy. It's not race. You're just playing the race card, mate. So don't tell me it doesn't happen here. Northern Ireland, where I'm sat now, let me get the numbers. People talk about sectarianism because it's the main problem here in Northern Ireland. Catholics and Protestants. I get that. 2017, 1,025 race attacks in Northern Ireland. 879 sectarian attacks. They're the figures from the police. More race attacks than sectarian attacks. What's the population of non-white people in Northern Ireland? 31,000. What's the population of everyone else? 1.8 million. Don't tell me we don't have a race problem here. Right? Don't tell me that. We've got people from the Windrush generation being deported. We've got Grenfell Tower, where we're being told, oh, well, they shouldn't have followed instructions. Oh, if they'd have followed instructions. It's because no one cares because it was black people that died. That's a tower full of white people. It's a different thing. You got Meghan leaving the country because of the way she's being hounded by the media. I'll post it in the show notes. 15 examples. There's one example where Meghan's holding a bump and it's disgraceful. She's just virtue signaling. When Kate was pregnant and holding her bump. Oh, isn't it lovely? Isn't it motherhood? This is what racism looks like in this country. It's pernicious. It's whispering about you in corners. And this happens day after day after day. And people say, why are you protesting about what's happened in America? What's that got to do with here? We're about to leave the European Union. Doesn't matter whether you want it or whether you don't, it's happening, right? And what are we going to do? We're going to sign a trade agreement with America, with this country, the land of the free. No, it's not. It's the land of the free if you're white and if you've got money. That's what that is. And what we're going to do, we're about to become the junior partner with that. I'm angry. I'm annoyed. I'm sad. I'm numb. I'm upset. I've never, ever felt like this about the death of somebody who I don't know. Never felt like this before. And it's got to stop. What can we do? I don't know. What is me spouting on a podcast going to do about it? I don't know. But I've got to do something. I've got to try and make a small difference somehow or other. Now, what's this got to do with marketing? Marketing's a people discipline, mate. We're all people. And we've got to understand that we're all people in this. You understand people, you'll be better at marketing, right? If you don't like this sort of thing, fine. Thank you for listening. Piss off. Don't come back. I don't mind. Honestly, I don't care. Coming up now, we're going to get back to talking about marketing. If you came to listen to Rand Fishkin is about to start. Yeah, we talk about life in America a little bit. We talk about marketing. We talk about Spark Toro. We talk about various things. And we talk about Trump as well. Because work and life aren't two things that sit in separate pots. It's what we do. It's who we are. It's part of us. So thank you for listening. I'm going to keep talking about this. I'm maybe going to see if I can do some special things about this. I don't know what I can do, but I'm going to try and do something. Thank you very much for listening, and listen around now. We'll get back to marketing. Thank you.